Good afternoon and welcome to a regular workshop meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. Today is February 24th. It is 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I'd like to call this workshop meeting to order and remind you that due to COVID-19, there will be no physical meeting location per Washington Proclamation 20-28. Meeting may be viewed live via YouTube at www.youtube.com/City of Oak Harbor. To listen to the live meeting, please call 623-404-9000, and the meeting ID number is 149-766-1467. And as a note, you listen to audio only. Comments are not usually taken at workshop meetings. On today's meeting, we do have one action item at the very beginning of this meeting. And so I would turn to our city clerk, Julie Lindsay, and ask her to do a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Heisen.
Present.
Councilmember Mack. Councilmember Mack.
Present.
Councilmember Servadius.
Present.
Councilmember Wassinger.
Present.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Present.
Councilmember Goebel.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Mayor, we have 6 of the 7 council members currently in attendance.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Then we will move on to our action item, which is approve Small Community Air Service Development Program grant application. And I believe we have today with us our Finance Director, Mr. Goldman, David Goldman. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. This is the request for approval of the Small Community Air Service Development Program grant application. The purpose of the SCASDIP, which is the acronym for the Small Community Air Service Development Program, hard to remember. It's a federal grant, and it's used to provide financial assistance to small communities to help them enhance their air service. The legal sponsor for this grant must be a government agency, such as a state, a county, or a municipality. Link Air contacted the city a few weeks ago regarding sponsoring and also administering the grant if it was awarded. And we looked back in our files and we found that the city did previously sponsor and administrate one of these grants back in 2008 with Kenmore Air. And that grant, the grant that was awarded, the amount of the award back in 2008 was $180,000. So the submittal deadline for this round is March 1st, 2021, in about a week. The total available nationwide is 18 million. It was 13 million, but the feds just upped it to 18 million. The previous grants, there's no minimum or maximum you could request, but the range based on previous awards is between 20,000 or 1.6 million. It's a really big range. Link Air's grant requests is for a total of $608,000, and the details of the request are contained within the agenda packet backup. Staff recommends approving the submittal of the grant to the U.S. Department of Transportation and is available to field any questions you may have.
So thank you, Mr. Goldman. I think before we turn to council for any action, I want to make sure with our city clerk that we've had no public input regarding this. No, okay. We've received no public input regarding this action item, so I will turn to council for questions and input or motions. So I see Councillor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. My only question would be, I'm looking at the application itself, and it talks about the public-private partnership. I absolutely support this. I would love to see air service restored in Oak Harbor. The question is there any ongoing responsibility or liability to the city should Link Air default on the grant in some way?
Well, the way these grants work is Link Air will be considered a subrecipient to us for the grant. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that whatever invoices they're submitting for reimbursement meet all the grant requirements. So if we are awarded this grant, there will be a grant agreement entered into between the federal government and the city of Oak Harbor. And based on what's contained within that grant agreement, we'll have to ensure that the invoices that are provided follow the grant agreement. Because what will happen is they'll submit us invoices, we'll review it, and then we'll pay them, and then we'll go to the feds to ask for reimbursal from the payment that we made to Link Air. So we have to make sure.
So hold on, say that again. You said we'll get an invoice, we'll pay it,
Yes,
and then we seek reimbursement?
yes, it's a reimbursable type grant. That's how it works. The federal government won't enter into an agreement directly with a private company, but they will enter into an agreement with a city government, a county government, or a state government per the grant guidelines. And that's not uncommon with these types of grants. Usually what we do is, like with a construction type grant, we usually contract out with a consultant or a construction company that we went out to bid for. And then when they submit us invoices, we pay them, and then we seek reimbursal from the granting agency. This is a little different because, Link Air is not a subcontractor or a consultant that we went out to bid for. They're just, they're a private company.
And so if we reimburse an invoice that's not reimbursable by the federal government, what is our recourse?
Our recourse is to go back to Link Air and ask for the money back.
I'll pause for a moment and see how my peers feel. Like I said, I support getting air service back to the island, and normally grants are just that, but I just want to make sure that $608,000 is not a small amount of money, and we'll assume that everything would go well, but $400,000 of that is for airplane, I think it said airplane, not airport upgrades.
Yeah, $400,000 of that is for an airplane upgrade.
So an airplane, which hopefully is insured, but what if something happens to that airplane? I'm just looking for, once again, what recourse or assets the city might have, but I'll pause for a moment and see if my peers have any comments.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Servadius. Councillor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. David, I assume with these grants, similar to the CARES grant program and other grant programs, like you say, we administer all the time, including the sewage treatment plant, which was a series of grants and et cetera, that the guidelines for this particular grant, are they very, very clear as far as what's reimbursable and what's not?
The guidelines are open-ended, but once we enter into if we're awarded this grant, we'll enter into a grant agreement that will clarify any kind of vagaries that we have based on looking at the NOFO, the Notice of Financial Opportunity. So with the grant agreement that we would enter in with the feds, it would have a lot more specific as to what is reimbursable and what's not.
But we would expect those guidelines to be fairly clear, kind of a checklist. These items, if they meet this criteria, they're reimbursable. That's what we kind of expect.
Well, before they would even award the money, they would be looking at the application. They would see the three main categories that is being requested, and if they don't think those categories are reimbursable, they would not award money for a particular category that they're requesting. And there's no guarantee with all the competition that's out there for grant money. There's no guarantee that they would award this grant in the first place. It really depends on, the strength of the application and what you're asking for and the benefits that will accrue.
But we will have an opportunity to accept or not accept the grant.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So there'll be a point in time where we'll have the criteria laid in front of us, and we can determine whether that criteria is clear and whether the city's taking on any risk whatsoever in doing the grant. And if we feel as though that risk is there, we have that ability to say, thanks, we're not ready to be willing to sign on to this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just because you're awarded a grant does not mean you have to accept it.
Okay. Well, I certainly, would be supportive of this. And in fact, I think it's no secret that I've, been talking about trying to get more commercial airline traffic, or at least the ability of commercial airline traffic our airport. And I think this is a good first move. Obviously, the closer we are to have that ability to provide some sort of service out of there, probably the better chance we have of I guess, helping spearhead the ability to have service to our area. I'm certainly not looking at the city owning an airport by any means. I don't think that would probably be prudent for us, but to think that the city could help through processes like these, which is what we did with Kenmore Air in the past. And I looked at that grant application, and quite a bit of the Kenmore Air grant money was also for airplane upgrades. So I guess that's a fairly common deal, right, is to be able to actually upgrade the aircraft to provide the service. So, I certainly think the city helping spearhead this is in the city's best interest. I mean, from a business standpoint, from a tourist standpoint, from a sheer transportation standpoint, having another way on and off the island. Certainly from an environmental standpoint, if we can, have a commuter service taking us to the airports rather than everybody driving their individual cars to the airport, less wear and tear on infrastructure. So I see all the positives that the city would help gain from this, and certainly the county, right, the whole region. I would certainly support this. I think it's a right step in a direction to make it so that we have that potential for service, so that if we do have the opportunity arise in the future to, again, assist as spearhead moving forward, maybe, we could find ourselves with commercial air transportation back here on the island, which I think would be a plus. So I appreciate your time on that, Mr. Goldman, and I think it's important for us to all understand the application is not the acceptance. The acceptance will be the acceptance, and we'll have that opportunity to do that if we get selected.
And also, I should point out that we would enter into an agreement with the federal government on this, but we would also enter into a sub-grant agreement with Kenmore, not Kenmore, with Link Air regarding this as well, spelling out exactly what are the allowed costs and the details of when to submit invoices and everything else that goes along with that. So we would have a sub-grant agreement. So,
Great, thank you for that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. Councilor Mack.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Goldman, for that presentation. I too would like to support bringing air travel back to Oak Harbor. I remember using when I first got to the island in the 90s. Flying out of Oak Harbor was a breeze, in and out to SeaTac, so I can support that. However, I am concerned about what Oak Harbor would be getting themselves into, the city, with not only liability situation with Link Air. I'd also be concerned at the same time if all the leases are in place and that type of thing. So again, I think this would be, our legal team will work this over within a sub-agreement with Link Air. So again, my concern is just what are we getting ourselves into? But I do support bringing air travel to Oak Harbor. I think it'd be a good business boost, also good for the community getting in and out. But let's make sure we cross all our T's and dot our I's with if we get the grant, receive it, that type of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mack. Okay, this would require a motion. Let's see, Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and make the motion. I move to approve the submittal of the Small Community Air Service Development Program federal grant.
Second.
Okay. Councillor Heisen has moved to approve the submittal of the Small Community Service, Air Service Development Program federal grant. Motion by Councillor Heisen, second by Councillor Servadius. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor, please raise your hand. Check the box, I guess is what we're doing here. And we've got, looks like, certainly we've got 6. All opposed? Okay, that's right. That passes unanimously. Okay, thank you, Council. We will move on then to our first item under Development Services, item number A, Horizontal Mixed Use Discussion, Non-CBD Commercial District. And I'm going to turn that to our Development Services Director, David Kuhl. And Dave may hand this off. It looks like, is Ray Lind? I see Ray here. Will Ray be doing the presentation, Dave?
Yes, this Ray Lindenberg's taken over for this one.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Ray.
you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm going to do a fairly brief presentation here, kind of outline where we're at with the process. I view this, and I told the Planning Commission yesterday that I view this as standing on the high dive and ready to really jump into the real good stuff here. So I just want to give you an update of what we're doing. So I'm going to share my presentation, and then I'm going to talk about some other examples. There was a request for some examples of mixed-use, horizontal mixed-use projects, and some of the wording from kind of peer cities around the area. So I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation, and then we can go into that discussion in just a moment. Let me make sure, okay, I'm in the right place here. I got 3 different screens in front of me, so I have to make sure that I'm in the right place at all times. So, the horizontal mixed-use process. We're viewing this as a continuation of work that was previously done on our central business district text, and some plans to work on some revisions for our other commercial zone districts as well, and this is part of that. Right now, mixed uses are allowed in Oak Harbor, but they're only allowed in a single building, which we term to be vertical mixed use. And you see several places in the code it refers to having residential over commercial, and so that's where we get that terminology. The vertical mixed use can be kind of visualized in this way. You have your retail or commercial tenants on the bottom of the building, and then you have your residential uses above. What we're contemplating here kind of moves things around a little bit, where you still have those 2 different uses, or more uses even, but they're in separate buildings, but they're all kind of developed at the same time, either on the same parcel or group of parcels, but they're developed with a coherent plan to that. The effect of the horizontal orientation is it provides a little bit of extra balance to development and flexibility for the development of parcels. Some parcels, honestly, just aren't appropriate for vertical mixed use. They're either very narrow with the frontage, or there's some sort of topography or other issue that creates difficulties for that. It does create a more suburban appearance. Generally, you have larger parking lots and less of a kind of walkable appearance to that. But like I said, in some locations, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And why the change? Why are we here today? We have had interest specifically on 2 parcels. And then as staff, we've looked around and thought about how this could work. And there are other locations where it would be very suitable for additional development within the city. Some of the potential benefits of allowing horizontal mixed use, as I mentioned previously, allows that flexibility and balance to development of properties. It's going to get additional residential capacity, which will allow us to provide more housing, and probably more affordable housing based on the type of development that you would get from this sort of use. Some potential negatives.
It could reduce the commercial land capacity that we have, and it functions as kind of a de facto rezone in some cases. And we don't want to have an imbalance in our commercial land inventory. I think the trend is going through the future to have less commercial land because of things like Amazon and the so-called retail apocalypse that's kind of currently happening. But we still want to maintain commercial land capacity so that we can be flexible and have that capacity available if something does come along that's beneficial to the community. And then also the conflicts between neighboring parcels weren't really considered. We zoned these commercial and didn't really have an idea that there would be residential development. However, that usually works the opposite direction. If there's conflicts, it's usually because it's going from residential to commercial and not the other way. So we have identified a few potential locations or districts within the city, taking a look at the C3 and C5 zone districts, as well as the residential office, the RO. And so what I'm going to do right now is unshare this presentation and take a look at some maps. And just realized I didn't have them right up on my screen, so let me grab those real quick. Sorry about that.
I've never heard the phrase retail apocalypse before. I'm not sure whether to laugh or cry.
I don't know if it's well known or not, obviously not actually, but it's something that I have read about. Just the idea that some of the kind of historical or legacy, I guess, retailers are starting to fall by the wayside and being taken over by online retailers like Amazon and things like that. So we're taking a look at the map here. This is the map of the city of Oak Harbor. Just to orient you, here's Highway 20 going through town. And we have all of our commercial districts shown on this one. We have the purple of the Central Business District. We have our commercial districts along the highway. And we have Midway. And then out those C4 zone districts that are located out there. So when we're looking at the usability or the applicability of doing horizontal mixed use in our existing commercial districts, we were able to take a few out immediately. First of all, we don't want the CBD because we've already established that we're going to be doing vertical mixed use in the Central Business District. So we're going to take that out immediately. We're going to take out those C4 districts up here because they are north of the 16th Street alignment or 16th Avenue alignment, which does not allow for residential development. So that kind of mixes that idea. Honestly, these will go away too. That 16th Avenue alignment will eliminate those. So we're left with the RO district, the C3 and the C5 districts, which allows for quite a few different locations for potential development there. And when you think about it, when you look at our residential office district, the RO district, which are just these areas here, we have what is functioning as horizontal mixed use already in the city. When you look at the parcels, especially there along Whidbey Avenue in between Midway and the highway, you will see that there are existing apartment complexes next to dental offices and a mix of uses already occurring, and it works. There aren't issues with traffic or noise concerns or things like that because they are compatible uses. That zone district was designed that way, and those parcels are relatively small. So what you have is, in effect, a de facto horizontal mixed-use zone already that is already working for us. We have a new dental clinic that will be breaking ground fairly soon on the north side of Whidbey Avenue there. And so we'll be able to see that kind of blossom and function already as a horizontal mixed use, which is kind of an interesting thing. We haven't really, considered that, but as we thought about it, as staff, we went through and said, you know what, this is happening already, and it's successful. It's not an issue, I don't think, or a problem for us. So there are some areas that I've considered when I've been thinking about this as actually exempting from the horizontal mixed use concept. Specific amongst them is what's known as the Chimes Corner at Midway Boulevard and Whidbey Avenue. Allowing that area to be exempted from horizontal mixed use and encouraging vertical mixed use instead, I think encourages that pattern of the taller buildings along Midway Boulevard that will introduce more of a pedestrian activity along there and a traditional kind of commercial district that is very small right now, but could blossom into something a little bit bigger in the future. So that is one concept I've thought about, kind of leaving out or using as an overlay. But again, it's just a concept right now. As we go through this, we're considering all options. So one of the things that we're talking about is, how do we integrate this into our code? And the key thing is here is that, hold on, I gotta start my presentation again, just a moment, sorry. I don't know where this has gone now. Okay, here we go. Okay, so back to the presentation. So we have the possibilities for code integration, and one of the concepts is to allow that horizontal mixed use in only the certain zone districts that we just discussed, and then setting standards and requirements for horizontal mixed use, including frontage requirements, how much property there is on a frontage of a roadway, and how far back that commercial development we need to reach, so that we're setting kind of minimum standards. We're not just saying that you can do, a 300 unit apartment complex and a 50 square foot coffee kiosk and call that horizontal mixed use, because I don't think that works from the standpoint of allowing for us to maintain, that commercial land inventory that we have now. If we start allowing that again, it goes to that de facto rezone where we're just transferring large swaths of land from commercial to residential. Landscaping standards, and following up with that, standards to mitigate half-finished projects. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that, but essentially what we're saying is that if a project includes residential and commercial and only one of those aspects is completed, we don't want to have a wide open weed patch sitting there waiting for the commercial or residential portion to be built. We want it to be at least landscaped in some way so it's not an eyesore to our community. So I'm going to take a look at some other examples from other communities. Okay. Let me stop share. Okay. Okay, so we have some other communities that have similar types of zone districts and regulations for mixed uses. I picked out 5 that were kind of local to us and what I would consider to be pure communities. Gig Harbor, Mukilteo, Port Townsend, Snoqualmie, and Tumwater were those. And the thing that I noticed is there's a wide variety of different characteristics here. Some communities use an overlay district, some do a specific zone district, and others just include design standards. In Gig Harbor, for instance, they use an overlay district. They have a distinct focus on larger projects. I'm guessing you probably can't read this, so I'll go over it, but they do have a minimum parcel size of 10 acres, which honestly will not work in Oak Harbor because we just don't have parcels that are that large. With those larger parcel sizes, they require 30% of the development area to be open space, which for a smaller project will probably eat into any potential of actually making it a profitable venture. They have 35-foot setbacks between properties shared with residential sites. So they're obviously focusing on larger projects, which, like I said, I don't think works for us, but we can still utilize some of these concepts and standards and be able to, kind of get some of these ideas and utilize them. In Mukilteo, they have design standards for mixed-use development. So when you look through their chapter or their table of contents here, it's all about design, overall district design, architectural design, building form, which we already have in our design regulations and guidelines. So that's something that we already have. It doesn't, we don't need to reinvent the wheel there. But they do talk about purposes of concept harkening back to a village where people lived and worked in close proximity. This is more focused on a downtown CBD type thing, but it does still allow for the horizontal mixed use. So we have kind of a concept there that introduces some of the design elements that we have within our process through that design regulations and guidelines document. In the city of Port Townsend, they have mixed-use zoning districts. They have a couple of specific locations that they utilize these. They have a neighborhood mixed-use center and a community mixed-use center, which is kind of a larger concept. And then their code is set up very similar to ours with permitted, conditional, and prohibited uses. You scroll through that, and all of a sudden they've got a matrix, which is something I really want to get into in our code, so we can have the different zone districts with permitted or not permitted, and you will be able to just look on one page and see what it is that you are dealing with as far as whether or not something is available for usage in a zone district. And so that's a concept that we're going to be working on as well, and that's one of the revisions that I talked about previously with our other commercial zone districts. In Snoqualmie, they have a mixed-use district as well. They go through, and their code is set up very similarly to ours. It talks about enabling development within the city with imaginative site and building design, which I think is a really key thing, where we're trying to allow developers to be imaginative and creative and utilize property in a way that makes sense for the property itself, instead of trying to apply very black and white code to a property that might not work with. It talks about mix of uses encouraged but not required. So the mixed use district allows and encourages a mixture of land uses. What we have is a commercial zone district. So if somebody wants to come in with a commercially, 100% commercial project, they can do that. And if they want to split it 50-50 with residential and commercial, we'll have standards for them to do that as well. And so I think that's an important concept to consider too. In Tumwater, they have a mixed use zone district. They talk about over time, areas in this zoning district are intended to gradually change from strict commercial and low intensity non-pedestrian uses into a mixed use pedestrian corridor. What they're focusing on there is kind of that old school, 1960s on up strict commercial, and they're trying to transfer that over to a more pedestrian friendly environment. And that's not necessarily the case here, but it is an interesting concept and something that we might want to investigate too. We do have our share of strict commercial centers that might be able to be kind of converted over to something more of a mixed use. Mixed use is desirable because it creates vibrant places and increased pedestrian business activity. So those are some of the concepts we're looking at. And one of the really important things here that I did see in Tumwater as well is this: provide affordable housing by providing more available building lots at lower cost. And again, this goes back to that de facto rezone situation that we are looking at possibly, allowing for a lot more residential units if those property owners want to focus on doing a mixed-use project that has more of a residential component. And so with the last couple of minutes here, I wanted to go through and show everybody a couple of examples from a place that I have a little bit more familiarity with from my previous jurisdiction where I worked in Utah. There were a couple of specific projects that were interesting and I think worthy of taking a quick look at. So what I'm going to do is show you a project that's near Park City, Utah. It's called Redstone, and you can see as you zoom out that it was a pretty undeveloped area. This is the Olympic ski jumping location for the 2002 Olympics, so that was kind of under construction at that time. But what happened here is you have this parcel that is kind of irregularly shaped because they were trying to condense all of the development into one area to allow for this wetland area to be preserved and enhanced. And so this is a horizontal mixed-use project that includes a commercial core right here on the kind of traditional Main Street looking commercial strip, and then also having some residential properties on the back side of that. They also do have a large parking lot there because they have a couple of big box stores. There's a Bed Bath & Beyond in here. But on this front side, on this Main Street, and we'll go and take a quick look at it, they have that kind of pedestrian-oriented flavor where you have your restaurants. Here's a brew pub right here. There's commercial retail spaces on the bottom floor. And then there are offices above. These don't have any residential units above. They're all offices and commercial spaces. And then once you move down the street here, you can see that you can access those residential areas through a kind of a side street, and then go back into the multifamily portion of the residential project, which ends up being, those kind of 6 to 8 unit buildings. Some have garages tucked underneath. Others have parking on the street. And so it becomes, again, a mixed use project, just not in the way that we would anticipate seeing in our downtown area. But this allows, again, for that flexibility to kind of stretch things out a little bit, and doesn't require a builder to construct a commercial space and then have, the residential units sitting on top of that commercial space might not be rented or just kind of sit there fallow until something happens. I am going to go directly to another one that I have experience with. This is in a jurisdiction that I previously worked for. It started out back in the late 90s. It was a greenfield site that was surrounded by kind of typical suburban development over the years. This is more, kind of what we would probably be looking at in the city of Oak Harbor. It was designed at 17 units per acre, and over the years, what happened is they built a bunch of residential units kind of over time. This started out in about 2008 to 2010. And of course, we all know that there was a significant economic downturn at that time. So a lot of it did sit empty for a while. But it has developed significantly over the past couple of years to the point where we get up to 2019 and you have all of this residential development on the backside. Now, the key thing is here is along this stretch right here is State Street that goes through the entirety of the Salt Lake Valley. It's the main commercial corridor through the Salt Lake Valley. Tens of thousands of cars driving by here, and a commercial strip that has not been built in the 12 years that this project was proposed. And so the problem with that is that when you have that sitting out front of a project, you get nice residential buildings in the background and a weed patch in the foreground there, which is something I think we need to avoid, and something that will have to be addressed in some way through the code, through either requirements of landscaping or maintenance or what have you. So that is a little bit of a concern that I have there. When you go back into that project, it's a very attractive project. Like I said, it's about 17 units per acre. So it's something that's definitely doable within the context of Oak Harbor. It's a large urban metropolitan area, but it's not super dense. It doesn't have 4 to 12-story buildings or something like that. They're pretty typical apartment buildings on one side and townhouses on the other. So something that would definitely work, I think, within the city of Oak Harbor. So with that, I'm going to probably stop right there and ask if you have any questions or comments, concerns, etc. Because like I said, I'm standing on that high dive. I'm ready to jump in because I'm excited to try some new things here. And I think it could be a real benefit to the city of Oak Harbor.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Councillor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ray, first of all, for the amount of time and detail you put into this, being able to visualize examples of what this concept looks like is extremely helpful. And the matrix, that table that you showed us, would be a really handy tool. If there was a way we could develop one of those for our code, that would be fantastic. So I realize that you're signing up for quite a workload in taking this on, and I appreciate that, because I think that this will only mean good things. When I'm in a community and there's a little commercial district that I really like the vibe of. It has so much personality. All of the retail and commercial spaces are just really usable and interactive. The thing that all of those spaces have in common is that people also live in those neighborhoods. Always, 100% of the time, it's because people actually live there and walk around and use those spaces. And I think that can make all the difference. So I support everything about this. I really appreciate the ability to look at other communities and see what works, see what doesn't work, and see how we can apply that. So thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this progresses and all the ways we can apply it here in our city. Thank you so much. Very cool.
Thank you.
Councillor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and thank you, Ray. Great presentation. And yeah, it's what's going on, right? Streets of Tannisborn down in Oregon. I mean, I've been to several of these communities, and I totally agree with Councillor Heisen that it really kind of gives you a cool vibe and a lot of activity. I guess my only concern, and I think you've already addressed it in your presentation, and I guess I would just want to pass it forward, is obviously that we protect our commercial frontage, right? Understanding obviously horizontal mixed use doesn't necessarily mean running it horizontal along the front of our commercial frontage. Obviously, our commercial frontage is what brings the pedestrians out on those streets and has them walking. And it'd be unfair, obviously, to our businesses to find themselves sandwiched between apartment complexes on a busy street. So, and I think that's one of the things you alluded to there at Chimes Corner specifically. But I know that you guys are going to incorporate into the ordinance that frontage requirement. So, other than that concern, I guess I don't have any. I think you're thinking about it the smart way. You're using some examples of places that have worked, as well as looking at the examples of what didn't work, right? And we can learn a lot from both of those. So appreciate your time and effort there. And I guess again, that's my only concern, and I'm sure you'll address it for me.
Thank you.
Councillor Servadius.
Mr. Lindenberg, excellent job. Thank you for the presentation. I personally appreciated the use of technology and Google Earth there. That was excellent. I appreciate the visuals. Do we have a mixed use code or part of our code right now? Do we please tell me you don't call it mud as you referenced in the other communities?
Kind of. Pretty much what our code says right now is that in certain zone districts, and it's honestly most of the commercial zone districts, you can put residential above commercial. And that is that vertical mixed use, and it's fine, and it will work in some places. Generally, your smaller lots in a downtown area or things like that. But when you're looking at developing a 3-acre parcel that has 150 feet of frontage on a street that's far away from, a commercial core, that doesn't work. And so that's what we're looking at is allowing for mixed use to happen in different ways, because we allow it now. It's allowed for now. It's just that it's not allowed in a way that's practical for, honestly, a vast majority of properties in the city of Oak Harbor. Or vertical mixed use works in small selected areas. Our CBD is a perfect example. I think Chimes Corner is another example, but it doesn't work everywhere.
Sure. No, and I knew we allowed it. I was just curious if we used, sorry, I wasn't clear and I was being a little bit humorous. The actual term or the acronym MUD, maybe we could bust out the thesaurus and come up with hybrid use district. You're just funny to see it in print, and maybe we too have it in print. Hey, but on a more serious note then, you made a statement and I may have misheard you. You said we eliminated the CBD because we've already removed, did you say vertical use or vertical mixed use?
I've taken the CBD out of the consideration for allowing horizontal mixed use, because I think the determination of the city council and the community was that we want to see vertical mixed use in the CBD and not horizontal mixed use.
Okay, correct. Then I must have misheard you. I thought you said we had removed vertical mixed use from the CBD, and that just triggered something in my brain that I made a note, but we've still got that in there.
Yeah,
in the
no,
traditional-
I might not have expressed that properly. I was trying to say what I'd done is on that map, I'd removed the CBD from consideration for that, and that might have come out wrong, so I apologize.
Okay. No problem. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks again, Ray. Seeing no other hands, then we'll move on at this time to Section B under Development Services, Shoreline Master Program Periodic Review. And I see our Senior Planner, Dennis Lefebvre. Dennis, is this yours today?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it is mine.
Welcome.
Thank you. I assume you can all hear me.
Yes.
Again, in your packet, we have the full draft of the proposed revised Shoreline Master Program, which we've been talking about for quite a length of time now. I just want to briefly go through how we navigate the documents that you have as part of your packet, and then also give you some of the next steps to this process. As I said, we have all 7 chapters of the Shoreline Master Program in your packet. All of the proposed revisions have been identified and strike through and underlined. As I've mentioned in the past, we've got a key number, which is 1 through 4, and it's highlighted in yellow after each revision, which ties in the supplementary documents that I've included as part of your packets as well. And these supplementary documents are broken out into the 3 required elements that we need for review, as well as some of the minor errors that we are correcting as part of this revision. The page numbers are kind of the linkage for these 4 supplementary documents. That's essentially the package. All of these documents are available online as well under oakharbor.org. If any of the viewing public want to take a look at these documents, the best thing to do on our homepage is to do a search for the Shoreline Master Program Periodic Review, and then it'll pull up all of these documents that we've been carrying throughout this process. The council has ample time to review this document. I've tried to build into our process sufficient review time for you. I will be coming back as a placeholder the next couple of workshops to see if you have any questions or comments on these documents. I'm also available via phone and email. You certainly know where I work. Some of the next steps, we are coordinating very closely with the Department of Ecology per your direction a year or so ago. And we are opening up a 30-day public comment window throughout the month of March. We will be receiving any comments that the public may have, of course, yourselves, the Planning Commission, any agencies, tribes. We will assemble all of those comments. Staff will prepare responses to those comments. We are also going to have a required public hearing with the Planning Commission at their March meeting. They won't need to take any action at that meeting, but just an opportunity to solicit additional comments by the public or whoever. We will prepare a package then after the 30-day public comment period and submit that to the Department of Ecology for their review. They have approximately a 30-day time frame then to review that package and make a determination of consistency, is what they call it. They will give us notice of that consistency. And then what we do then is start basically our review process in-house. Again, we'll have a public hearing with the Planning Commission. This time they will make a recommendation to you. We anticipate that at your June 1st meeting, if council wishes, as typically in the past, we've had a public hearing, and then we will be looking for council action on this document. Once that step is complete, we have another package that we need to prepare and then ship that off to Ecology, and hopefully we'll get their blessings within a fairly short amount of time. So with that, that concludes my presentation this afternoon. I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions or if you have any comments on this at this point in time. But as I mentioned, you have a few months ahead to review the entire document. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. LaFever. See if council's got any questions. Doesn't look like it at this time. Okay, thank you. We'll then move on to our next item, which is the 2021 Comprehensive Plan docket. And it looks like we have Senior Planner Kat Kamak joining us. Mr. Kamak?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council, Kat Kamak, Senior Planner. Here to just introduce the 2021 Comprehensive Plan docket. It's aligning for the March 16th City Council meeting. It has already gone to Planning Commission. They held a hearing on it at their January meeting, and they recommended approval of the docket. So just wanted to give the council a preview of what's coming at the March meeting. So what we have coming forward for this year is the Housing Action Plan. We've been working on it this past year. We knew it would take more than 1 year, so we're looking at it right now. The first draft is out and it's online, and we as staff are taking a look at it. I haven't even given a first read on it yet, still reviewing the document. It's that fresh. But that is going to be moving through the review process this year, and eventually we'll probably have some policy changes and things that we'll adopt with the comp plan. We also have the UGA and the JPA discussion. This is also a carryover from last year. The county didn't prioritize this as a project for them. They had a lot of other things going on during the COVID year. And the Housing Action Plan actually is going to set the foundation for the UGA JPA discussion. That's what the county wants. They want data, and this Housing Action Plan and the analysis that was done as part of the plan is going to provide that information that the county will need. So we've already, the Development Services Director can speak to this. We reached out to the county. We're already coordinating some communication efforts with their planner there to start that discussion. The capital improvement plan is an annual amendment that's always considered. We have moving projects. And also, I can tell you already we're looking at some projects that may be coming forward for the 2021 amendments for consideration related to the Harbor Heights project potentially. So it's always an evolving document, good to keep it alive and discuss opportunities for projects there. So that'll be also on the docket. And then we have, if the council remembers, the city applied for a grant to the IRTPO last year and was awarded money for doing an active transportation plan. We'll initiate that project this year. This will be a multi-year project as well. We'll start talking about it fairly soon in a couple months, trying to formulate a scope and a direction and a goal for that project. The active transportation plan is basically ways to use the existing right-of-way in creative ways so that we can promote active transportation like walking, biking, skateboarding, scooters, whatever it is, however people can get around and to use the existing right-of-way. So we'll have a process for that to evaluate the existing conditions. This project can identify safety projects for us. It can give us parking policy. It can give us choices on how do we want to have this on the roads and what would be the most recognizable way to support that. So these are the things that are moving forward. Just wanted to give the council a chance to preview this. It's coming to your March 16th meeting. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or anything, be happy to discuss it. You can always contact me also and call me to chat about any of these items. With that, I'll turn it back to the City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Kamak. So see if the council has any, doesn't look like there's any questions at this point. Thank you again. We will then move on to our next item, which is now under finance, and that is professional services agreement, Oak Harbor Main Street Association for B&O tax reimbursement. And we have our finance director, David Goldman, back with us. Mr. Goldman?
There we go. Okay, good afternoon again. This is for the Oak Harbor Main Street Association Professional Services Agreement overview. Let's go to the next slide. So a little bit on the history of the Main Street program in Washington State. The Main Street Tax Credit Incentive Program was first implemented back in 2005. The program provides a business and occupation or public utility tax credit for contributions given to eligible downtown organizations. The city chose to participate in the program and to provide the funding to the Oak Harbor Main Street Association on December 15th, 2015 via the resolution 15-44 that is contained in the agenda package. In the resolution, it stipulates that upon appointment of a permanent board of directors and an executive director, the city of Oak Harbor will consider the execution of a professional services agreement, which I'll get into in about 2 slides. So the way the Main Street program works is that once a contribution is approved by the Department of Revenue, the organization making the contribution is eligible for a tax credit worth exactly 75% of the contribution on the following year's taxes. Now, this program is only available to Main Street associations in cities and towns that have a population of less than 190,000. Now, the maximum annual contribution to each Main Street association is $133,333.33, which equates to, if you multiply that by 75%, which equates to exactly $100,000 in tax credits. The statewide cap of all the tax credits that can use this Main Street Association program is $2.5 million. And that cap is divided evenly by the number of Main Street associations in the state. And the state has a website that's located right there in the slide that someone can go to get more details on the program. So for 2020, the city contributed $95,000 towards the Oak Harbor Main Street Association, which equated to a $71,250 tax credit to be used this year. The maximum Main Street contribution, which I mentioned before, was $133,333.33. If the updated professional services agreement for 21 has a maximum contribution of $95,000 like it did last year, then that would equate to a maximum tax credit for the following year of $71,250, which means that other potential contributions can be up to $38,333.33. Now, if other contributions, if Main Street Association gets other contributions besides from the city in excess of that amount, then the city would reduce our $95,000 contribution, if that's the contribution that the city council decides to set in the professional services agreement for 2021. So the Oak Harbor Main Street Association recently appointed an executive director. And per the terms of the resolution that's in the agenda packets, it's recommended that the city enter into a new professional services agreement with the Oak Harbor Main Street Association. The PSA is currently being drafted by the city attorney, and it'll include the scope and schedule of work, terms of payments, and the independence of the Oak Harbor Main Street Associations, among other items. And the previous PSA is dated March 17th, 2020, and that's also contained in your backup. And we look forward to hearing your input on this. And also, we plan to bring the PSA to City Council for approval sometime next month. So staff is available to field any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goldman. turn to council. Councilor Servadius.
Thank you. Mr. Goldman, I'm looking at your slide that had in the packet, I guess it's page 208, had the numbers for 130. There we go. So if I'm understanding you right, if Main Street received outside contributions in excess of 30, I've been around 38,000, how do we know when that would occur? Who takes, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if the chamber's mic is still on.
Well, we would work with the Oak Harbor Main Street Association, and also we can log into the Department of Revenue website to see how much was pledged. And we would do that up through the end of March, because March, by the end of March is the deadline to pledge up to that $2.5 million cap. And I believe on the midnight of March 31st or April 1st, I'm going to look into exactly when, we would have to pledge the difference between the other potential contributors and the 95,000 or whatever number the city council decides to put into the PSA, just to be sure that we're able to have that money available for the Oak Harbor Main Street Association, because they have this, you know, this deadline at midnight at, you know, the 31st, where you have to kind of just run in there, and there'll be main streets from all over the state also trying to get whatever's remaining from that, from the statewide cap. So
Right. No, I remember that. I was on the board for a while for Main Street. So that's what you're proposing, is we would have someone monitor that.
yes,
And then at the last minute, we would make a contribution up to the budget amount of 95,000.
Yep.
Okay. And then the only other question I had, the tax credit, is that something the city can take advantage of? I understand being a sole prop or S Corp, C Corp, how it would benefit them. Do we get that same advantage of the tax credit?
absolutely. As a matter of fact, we file our excise taxes every month, and we just utilized some of the credit from last year in the most recent tax filing that we did.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions at this point, so that will conclude that section. Thanks again, Mr. Goldman. We will now turn to the Marina, Oak Harbor Marina policies, procedures, and general operations. And I believe we should have our harbor master, Chris Sublett. Mr. Sublett?
Hello, Mayor, City Council members. Just want to provide an informational update to you about our new policies, procedures, and general operations document. So the current policies and procedures that we operate off of, which are essentially the rules of the Marina, provide for a pretty peaceful and tranquil operation of the Marina. The ones that we're currently working off of were actually drafted in 2006 and haven't really had a major revision since. So they're a little bit outdated and don't exactly follow all of the Marina trends and in what's going on at the Marina. And we also follow the Oak Harbor Municipal Codes, section 6.4 and 6.36 are directed at the Marina. So we have a lot of rules or policies that we use in the Marina. And for this discussion, we're just focusing on the policies and procedures that we draft here in the Marina. So the new ones capture more of the Marina trends. And over the years, as voting has changed and people have changed, different things are happening down here, different behaviors and different, just a whole different things going on now. So these new rules or these new policies and procedures come from our current document, the one that we have, and from other marinas such as Cap Sante, Everett, and Lacana. There are some that we wrote specifically for the Marina, but not many, and those deal with our boat ramp and some of our tenant guest issues and some of our commercial traffic that we have here in the Marina. So these new policies and procedures were reviewed by the Marina Advisory Committee 4 times from November to February. And then at the February meeting, they officially adopted them. And then moving forward, the max ask that they be reviewed each year by the Marine Advisory Committee. So we've been working on them for several months now and taking a lot of feedback from the Marine Advisory Committee and some public input as well. So we've kind of landed on a document that we think is a good document that's going to be just a great starting point for years to come. One thing to note is that the new document is twice as long as the old one. And a lot of that has to do with the way it's formatted, the index, the headers, the footers, those sorts of things. It's going to be really clickable from our website. So it's going to be a lot easier to read. And that was the sacrifice we made in making it a little longer in the decision that we made. So moving forward, how are we going to get it out to our tenants? How are we going to let our tenants know about this? We've written an article for the March newsletter. We're going to try and use QR codes. It's, again, it's a kind of document that I don't believe people will put up, but they may, or print up, but they may bring up on their phone or their tablet and just kind of skim over it. We're going to have some signage around the marina. It's going to be updated on our website. We're going to have copies in the office if people actually want a copy. We'll give them one. And then one really neat thing that we're going to do this year is a welcome packet to our new tenants, our summer people. That's going to have a bunch of information, and this will be one of them in there. I see a page in there that's going to have a QR code with these rules, links to the municipal codes, our rates, stuff like that. So we're really excited to finally get this document up to speed and get it targeted to what's going on at marinas now. And again, this is just an informational update. No action is necessary. We just thought you guys might be interested in this. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sublett. So we'll turn to the council to see if got any input or questions. Not seeing any. Okay, thank you. Mr. Sublett, we will move on to our final item, which is a city administrator's report. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Oborn.
All right, a lot of words here. I think the total report was 116 pages. So I appreciate your review and input on the report. And without going into specific detail, I'll just take any questions that you may have.
Okay, Councilor Wiesner.
I just wanted to say how much I loved 116 pages of report. And I'm serious about that. I mean, there can never be too much information disseminated our way, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's our way of obviously keeping in touch with what's going on. I think there's a lot of valuable information in here. It's very enlightening for me to see, how many street signs we're replacing each month. I mean, some of that stuff just seems like little detail, but it reminds us of what all the services we provide as a city, and all the things that, in some way, us as city council folk are responsible for, right? And where the money is going to. So I just keep it coming, Mr. Oborn. I did sit down and I go over this. It is not just pushed aside. And the fact that you send it out in advance of this meeting and give us time to be able to look at it and digest it and be able to come back with questions is an important key. And I appreciate that. And never too much information. Thank you. Keep it coming.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Servadius.
This question might be more for Sabrina. I'm just curious. I've been trying to follow these Zen City reports as we've seen them with regards to everything from the art to, I'm looking at the shop local one. I was kind of intrigued on our packet. It is page 327. And I'm just curious, that shows basically there's 19% positive on those, I guess, keywords of shop local, chamber of commerce, or Oak Harbor Chamber. So 19% positive, 66% neutral, and 15% negative. So the positive and neutral pretty much balance out. I'm just curious, how much human introspection goes into reviewing this data and not just as we all know, social media, I think it skews more negatively than positively. A lot of the times it's very easy to spiral that way. But how much time does a person or any human being, either at City Hall or with Zen City, spend interpolating any of these results? Or is this just raw data based on, and I'm not sure how they would deem a positive or neutral comment? Any input, Mr. Oborn or Ms. Combs?
So I would say, Councilmember Servatius, that what I do is I use this as a tool to guide me into some of the conversations or as follow-up. So an example of that when we talk about shop local is I use the reports to dig into a little bit more detail about what people are talking about, what areas we might be lacking in, what we could get more information out about. Or when recently we had several businesses opening up, and yourself, Mayor Pro Tem Munns, and the mayor all attended different events. It was allowing me to see specifically what people were talking about outside of some of the things that I knew about. So that's how I use the data. I look at the report, I dig into it. We can click on the actual links. We can also do more extensive reporting from those links and look into the specific comments that were made or what around them. So I use this as sort of a guide. And one way that I would say that is when the arts object came up and people were starting to talk about it, there was a report already generating from that. And then I focused in on wanting to talk about Windjammer Park and other keywords that I know were coming up so that I could make sure we were capturing everything out there. And then using that data, we were able to extrapolate a little bit more information about what was going on. And it's interesting because you're talking about the negativity. What I saw, for instance, with the arts thing was they were concerned from community members about whether or not council was hearing their comments. And so I use that as an opportunity to go back into the social media posts and say, hey, here's how you comment to council. These are the tools that you use to do that. So I would say it's a great tool that provides us an idea or a concept into what people are really talking about, and then being able to dig into it a little deeper to find more detail about what's going on. And I wouldn't say it's all negative. I've actually been fascinated with things like shopping local, COVID. There can be very positive interactions that are highlighted on there. Some of it was thanking Island Drug. Some of it was talking about with shopping local, some of the great things that businesses are doing and some of the programs that are running right now. So that's been interesting for me to see as well.
So thank you. I appreciate that. Let me rephrase that. I guess in general, I think it's easy for social media to spiral. It's very interesting to watch. It might be a discussion about the Navy and all of a sudden we don't need any more Mexican restaurants in town. It's like, huh? But anyway.
To that point, I think what's great about the Zen City reports is I'm seeing one trend, but what I'm able to go find is all the other conversations that are going on that maybe flip that switch so that I realize, okay, it's not so negative. Or this is what I found also interesting is this is what started the trend. There was an article or something that people connected with and started speaking from that response.
Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate that. Because, this was one that caught my eye and I thought, how could you not support shop local? Why is it not skewed so much more positively? But just depending on what data and what article or what comment, on whatever social media platform, it obviously generated these statistics. So just a thought and a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and a big key just for council is that we are running the date period that's listed in the report. So the current stuff, if you wanted something more current, that's not what I'm giving you. I'm giving the date period. So for this instance, it was January, but I am looking at more updated information as it's coming out.
Super, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sabrina, for giving that explanation on Sin City and the use of artificial intelligence. So it's quite interesting, and it's good that we have the ability to drill that down and kind of verify a lot of the information. So I'll take any other questions, Mayor?
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions at this point. So thank you to City Council. And I think that if there are no other items at this point to discuss, we will adjourn. Thank you very much, City Council, and thank you out there for watching us. See you now.